went to my house on Friday
Restitution to Charlotte's house.
for $100. I don't, it was just, no, it went to the city of Wilsonville at my home address for $100. It has a case number,
I kept all mine.
number, but no explanation. I have no idea.
How are you? Doing pretty good. Well, thank you. You too? How are you?
Pass the check. That's funny. Hope I never get any of those. I'd shred them.
I leave them in my mailbox for like a week. I go out and collect.
A big pile.
I finally went through the day right before we ran over. Oh. There was no way they could stick another letter in. Because it's like really mail heavy right now. We're sending out for holiday. Like they're like it was. We let it go.
Too long.
Over a week, but not two. It's
Love
all
that.
been out.
That's a nice thing.
Come back to order and light up your mics if you would, please. For City Council work session, November 19, review of agenda. Any questions on agenda items?
Nope.
Or concerns? Councilor Starr?
Got a concern that seems to be growing. This would be traffic related, and it's Wilsonville Road during the morning rush hour commute. So we've got Beckman Creek Elementary and Wilsonville High School, and it's just getting, the traffic just kind of winding back further and further. And the problem is we have single turn lanes into both schools from Wilsonville Road, and traffic can't get by them very easily, and it's really starting to get to be a problem. So the other thing would be Meadows Loop as it comes into facing the high school. I believe the left-hand turn lane would probably accommodate traffic better if it was left-hand turn and straight, because most people want to turn right onto Wilsonville Road, and they can't. They have to wait for the cycle to be able to do that. So I'd love to have someone come out in the morning and take a look at that and see if there's anything that we can do, maybe to work with the school district on how to accommodate all that traffic. Because, I mean, that's the only way to get through.
Yeah.
So,
Do we have prior analysis, I assume, when we did something at some point?
I'd
We
have to
could-
defer to Nancy in terms of.
Well, we
any
presumably could
transportation
look
studies.
back at what our
Yeah.
prognostication was and see if we're anywhere close, or do a little bit of a study.
I think we'll have to contact DKS. Yeah, there we go now, got it. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner, Councilors. Nancy Crush, our Community Development Director. I'm sure that the schools they were built so long ago, I think their traffic studies probably, I mean,
Irrelevant.
when was Wilsonville High School?
95.
So they do a 20-year look, so I think we're beyond that.
yeah.
So we would need to we just could do a study of the intersection. We could have DKS take a look at it.
I'm especially concerned because as Frog Pond starts to develop, it's really going to get tough then.
You said it's just the morning.
Yeah, it seems to be just with all the kids coming to school and families dropping off their kids, that it's really clogging things up.
Do you think any of it has to do with the fact that we now have a middle school on this side of the freeway?
That can be a contributor, but I don't think the buses, like I just live in the Meadows, and I don't know I think all the kids walk now. which means they ride in their parents' car instead of a bus coming.
They do.
So that's not helping. So there's less bus traffic and more car traffic that's going on as well.
So the other thing that, could be done, and I don't know if it is done, would be to talk to the school district about staggered start hours. You have an elementary school, middle school, and a high school. Do they all start at the same time?
They do not.
How much room is there? How well managed are those components?
Middle school starts the latest, I believe. The elementary school starts the soonest, and the high school's in the middle.
I think, didn't the elementary school change their start time just this last year? Or was it the year before it? Because they did make a change.
I'm not sure.
You can look at that, too.
That school, Beckman in particular, I think, made a change because they.
But if we're having a conversation with the, we're having a conversation with the school district, I just happen to, I hardly ever go to the high school anymore in the morning because I don't have kids in school anymore. But I went with a friend who had to drop her daughter off early, and I didn't say anything, but she commented, my friend did, about how many cars we passed as we went out that had one parent and one child in the front seat. And they were backed up, but it was like, that it's exactly that. And she said, and a lot of these parents are passing kids whose parents are getting in a car, 3 block or a block away.
Yeah.
And I know it's really hard to change human behavior, but if the school district could somehow get a message across that says, carpool a little bit. And, everybody goes faster if we do something.
Or use the city bus. It's free.
Or
The city bus, you got the school bus, you got.
Yeah, well, it's not
All
cool
these
to take the
parents.
bus.
It's cool to take
15.
smart.
The school
Right,
bus.
Dwight?
The school bus.
Very cool.
Not if you're 50. But so, and you're so cool.
So then you
I
get.
don't know, but it is happening because it's the parents driving kids who.
So in the analysis, you get to the question of how many single occupant vehicles are we talking about, and are those just lifestyle choices that people want to make? And how many millions of dollars worth of road do we build so they can make those choices,
Right.
For the 4 years their kids go to that school before something else happens.
And it wasn't raining, so it wasn't as if those kids couldn't walk to school or take the bus.
You can't walk in the rain?
Yeah, well, you can, but I mean, it's even more so.
Not in
when it's
California,
a sunny
but here
day.
you can.
We'll look at it.
Okay.
Oregonians,
Okay.
yeah. And I don't remember anything being flagged in our transportation system plan analysis, so it could be sort of this more recently than when we were really analyzing everything.
The high school's more full than it.
And if the
was.
bus rules changed also, I don't know when that happened.
And if
We
the
just,
elementary school starts.
we just got some updated
It might have been
enrollment
the year
numbers from the school district
change
too,
the times.
that we can share with you all going forward.
All right.
But it is an issue in West Lynn, in the West Lynn schools as well as here, and for the city of West Lynn, because you just have all at the same time, all these cars taking a single child to school, and you're having to redo the land plans for the school to be able to handle all of these cars coming through this turnaround at the same time, as well as the neighborhood streets. And I have always been surprised how the West Lynn Wilsonville School District seems to think it's not their problem. That they do nothing to encourage not taking,
Dispersion.
to encourage any of the other options, walk or bike or carpool with several students or take the city bus or take the school bus. There are many options. And the school district is always like, well, it's not really, what can we do?
We can do a lot more in terms of educating and partnering with the school district. I think Dwight is hiring someone for that very reason to do
great.
safe routes to school. We do outreach on a regular basis related to SMART, but we can do some articles in the Bloomsbury Messenger.
But we need the school board and the school district to be fully on board with this, as if it was their issue as well as ours.
Sure.
It does impact them. It impacts their land requirements for every school they build.
Agree. So maybe that'll be one of the agenda items when we get together with them in February or March
yeah,
of
that
next
joint
year.
meeting.
Yeah,
I brought it up the last time we got together.
but we can highlight it.
Put it on the agenda, yeah, get it on
and,
the agenda. yeah.
Give it more than just lip service, how's that?
Okay, other council concerns? Seeing none, let us move forward then with our scheduled work session items, starting with our janitorial services contracts.
You're not gonna watch? You have to watch, because you won't understand and appreciate why we need to make a change.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Delora Kerber, the Public Works Director, and
Matt Baker, Facility Supervisor.
And we're here tonight to have a conversation with you about janitorial services for city facilities. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, maybe that one. All righty. So, per state law, local governments are required to use qualified rehabilitation facilities for various different services, goods and services, and especially for janitorial services. And so qualified rehabilitation facilities hire employees that either have mental and or physical disabilities. So since July 2012, the city has contracted with a group called Tualatin Valley Workshop to do our cleaning around the various facilities. But over the last 6 years, we've continued to struggle with the quality of the work, and it's been troublesome. I mean, we have met time and time again. Matt has spent, a good quarter of his work life meeting with them, going over the issues of concern. They promise that they will fix it, and then it never gets fixed. And so we just struggle with that. We have logbooks that we are available that we can write. Anybody can write in there issue of concern, but then we find that they're not being addressed. There's security issues having to do with, we have master keys to the buildings, and they're supposed to notify us when a master key goes missing. We've had several incidences where it's been over a week before they fessed up to the fact that they were missing their master key. And we know that because we found the master key and we held on to it to see how long it would take them to mention that they were missing it. But anyway, so it's a challenge that we have of the low quality of work, and yet we are paying a premium for these services because the state sets the price, and then we sign off on the agreement. And so there's the financial element of it, but then there's the other portion of the public health of concern, in that there is great question over to the sanitation of various facilities, be it these tables, the bathrooms, the countertops. I hate to bring that up to you. Just, yes. Anyway, and so we've had numerous challenges with them. There's been inappropriate or questionable behavior, they have staff turnover, all of that. And so we've just reached the point where we decided that we were going to do an analysis to determine, would it be better for the city to do these services with in-house staff rather than contract out? And so we did do an analysis of that. And so I'm just going to kind of go through here a little bit of.
Going to need to move along.
All right, I'm moving along. So these are all the various facilities in which that they clean. This is the laundry list of the daily, weekly, monthly requirements. So we just pulled together a few, and there's many, many more, showing you some photos, showing you some comments from various of our employees and or contract staff, pointing out how things are not being paper products not being filled, toilets not being cleaned. We have stains, point out to them. They came back, took the big blob, but didn't bother to really wipe down the counter. We have, where we have dirt and grass, garbage not emptied. And these are all things that are needed to be done on a regular basis. Matt could tell you that when there's a day or two going without these services, things really start to break down in a hurry. This is one of my favorites. This is just kind of, even though theoretically the floors were swept,
that this is what was swept up off the floor the day after, before anybody had come into the building. Toilets not being clean, items clearly being left on the staircase.
I'm very sorry you have to see that.
Yeah, staircase because they hadn't vacuumed the staircase. Over at the West Center, that, you know, this is the way it looked like when they showed up before the doors opened to anybody. A lot of more of the same. No, this is my absolute favorite one, where though the rooms should have been vacuumed, staff emptied the vacuumed the areas, and this is what they came up with. So that leads you to believe that the vacuuming has not been occurring as it should be. More of that. And then, and then, you know, with our contract people who are teaching classes, I mean, they just are really come back time and time again, concerned about the cleanliness of the center. And so we did an analysis and we said, okay, our current contracts is $186,303, and we also contract out for window washing and floor care, separate contracts for this total of $218. And we had determined, based on our analysis, of we could hire 3 full-time employees, we could buy equipment, a vehicle, and all the equipment we needed in the first year, and even with that, we could potentially save almost $3,000. And then if you look at the next year where we didn't have to do the same capital outlays again, we could potentially save up to $3,700. So, with that. So we're here trying to get a sense from the council as to what direction we might go. One is we can continue on with Tualatin Valley Workshop, doing the status quo. 2 is we could terminate the contract with them and then in turn hire another QRF per state law to perform the janitorial services. However, we were told that Tualatin Valley Workshop was the best of the group, so it calls into question, will we get any better service? And then the third option is to terminate their contract and perform janitorial services with in-house staff. Now, with the in-house staff, that would require us to bring on additional staff. We can't do it with the existing staffing that we have, but in our analysis, looking at that, if we had 3 additional staff, bought the van and tools and equipment, and so on and so forth, this is how we came up with our analysis of cost. So,
What about option 4?
which is
Hire someone to do it that'll do a good job,
We
but
can.
not hired.
We have, when I first got here, we had a private company doing it, and they were doing an excellent job, but we no longer have that option. It's a QRF.
or
So we wait till
in-house
they sue us
services.
and then we show them what a stupid law this is. Who, is it? Was
It's a
it
state law.
The Oregon State House and Senate that passed it, or was it this a governor thing that said?
No, it's a state law, so it was passed by both houses, but
They should be so proud.
it's the public policy behind it is sound.
Yeah.
The implementation is not sound.
Right.
I mean, it's providing people an opportunity to make a living wage that otherwise would not be able to.
I get that part, but
But in implementation, we've had 2 different QRF firms, have we not?
That's my understanding. We have
Yes.
one more.
And we did not, we switched from one to the other because we did not have good luck with the other.
Right.
so you have an out if you do it yourself.
Correct.
If we do it ourselves, we can control the quality of the
Right.
service.
And we're not
it's- And we
required.
save
Right,
money in the
right.
process, so.
Other questions?
And we're in compliance, more importantly, for our city attorney, we're in compliance with the law.
Can you have them as a part-time employee?
Could you have?
So you don't have to pay benefits?
But we still have to pay benefits, they'd be prorated.
Yeah, they could be part-time employees, then you might need more of them.
Though I was going to say, we had determined that it would work best with 3 FTEs. So we could do part-time, but then we'd need, like, if they were only half-time, 6 FTEs.
Well, just
Or 6
let-
people to make up the 3
But
FTEs.
let's be clear, when it comes to recruitment and retention.
Yeah.
You're not going to get very good offerings for half-time employment,
Correct, yes.
especially when we're in a full employment environment.
So
Counselor
what-
Stevens?
Thanks. So what do other cities doing? Do we check with other cities, Westland, Sherwood, Tualatin? What are they doing and who are they working with?
We don't want to bust anybody out here,
We do
okay?
not want to, yes, we don't want to get into the question of what they are doing if they're following.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Other questions?
So one of the reasons this is brought before you is that the current contract that we have with Tualatin Valley Water, or Tualatin Valley Water, sorry, wrong one, wrong Tualatin Valley Workshop, is that the current contract does expire March 31st of 2019. So it's something that we were thinking about, that if we wanted to go that route, that the timing of the contract could be.
Aren't they in breach of the contract right now? Because they're not doing the services that are required?
Well,
Technically, yeah.
yeah, technically.
Might be cleaner, though, at the end of a contract than trying to argue about whether there's grounds for,
Well, we are able to terminate their contract with a 30-day notice with no cause.
our estimated costs, if we ran internally, include all the benefits, whatever PERS, whatever,
It includes
everything?
Everything.
Yeah, so it's
Equipment,
61% markup on what they would actually take home pay, the
So
benefit.
It's pretty conservative estimate, so if there's a cost savings in the estimate here, then there's little question.
You think it'll be at least that good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, staff is looking for what? Direction, a vote of what?
Yeah, well, so one of the options they put up there was status quo, and I think that's not an option. We get complaints on it. I mean, I only get 1/10 of what Matt gets, but I hear it as well for every facility. It's just not acceptable.
Well, it seems like 6 years of trying is a fairly extended effort.
Yeah.
And it really does suck up a lot of Matt's time because he has to document everything, make calls, and maybe there's marginal improvement here. And then there's some other risky type behaviors that are going on that we don't want to get into tonight.
Yeah.
That concern me as well.
And we do have a fiduciary responsibility to our citizens to use our limited resources wisely.
Yeah, and if it's some, I kind of agree with Councilor Stars. Like, I think the public policy on this is sound, but maybe there's a conversation we can have with the state to say, look, if we tried it and it doesn't work out, could we have the option of going out to a private company? Because we did have good success with that.
Yes, we did.
But I think that's a longer-term lobbying thing.
Well, it may be longer term, given everything else that they've got on the table. And also, if we and a few other cities start, and it indicates a trend that whatever they've mandated is not working, then there's some more impetus for legislation, yeah.
Could be.
So what would you like?
Some direction to move, you want a recommendation?
Yeah, I
Recommendation would
guess-
be to move forward
Yeah.
with bringing it in-house.
Right.
I'm entirely comfortable with bringing it in-house. I don't know why we're buzzing, do you think? Is it you?
I don't know either.
Someone's buzzing. It's the feedback. But I'm entirely comfortable with bringing it in-house.
Okay, other views?
It'd be, having the contract, I mean, I don't know if you could go to the end of the contract and see if just knowing that you're not going to renew is not going to make a difference.
I mean, we have done so many different ways that I really
It's
don't
just-
think it's
you've
going to
exhausted
motivate
your
them.
effort.
Yeah.
It really comes down to lack of supervision, of,
They're
really
autonomous.
having that, I don't know. Personally, I wonder if they really care. It's kind of like, you have to hire us, so we'll do what we do.
I involved the state coordinator in a lot of the email correspondences too, and he's the one that actually said we would just have to hire another one, so.
Okay,
Okay. That'd be fine.
how long will it take us to find somebody, hire them, and be ready to take it on ourselves?
Well, we would get going here shortly.
Well, I understand that, but,
um,
we're going to beat the March deadline by much? I mean,
Well, no, I would hope that within, 3 months or so, we would be up and running. I mean,
that would
because
be
it's-
the end of the contract, that's what
well,
I'm trying to
yeah,
say.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we would go out and solicit now. I mean,
Yeah.
going through the holidays is always a little challenge.
And will we have some options to, like, if we needed to extend the contract by 1 month, do that with maybe not this QRF, but maybe another one?
Potentially,
A 30-day contract
Yeah.
or something?
yeah.
Or conversely, with a private company for 30 days if we had to?
Yeah, yeah, we could do that.
I'd
Yeah.
make
We
sure that they
definitely-
were done by the end of the year, hire a private company until you can hire your people, and then we're up. Go.
Right.
All right, I'm seeing head nods around the table, so I think you've got
Okay,
a
thank
council
you.
direction on that.
All right, thank you.
Thanks very much. Next up is Traffic Concerns Team. We have a name for it, the
We do.
TCT,
TCT,
and the CRM system. What's the,
the That's the system that our citizen complaints come in on, through our website.
Okay.
No, I always get it wrong.
Citizen request module.
Oh, yes, why didn't I know
I
that?
don't think that's it.
CRN?
It's not citizen request.
Part of the
No.
website.
It's something different. That's why I always screw it up. Yeah.
Ask the city a question.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and city councilors. I'm here with Chief Werps to talk to you about a new committee we're forming, and in a way that we'll be able to get a lot more organized and structured about how we track and respond to traffic concern complaints we get from citizens, which are quite a few. And it was Chief Werps' idea, and so I would say that since it was your idea, I'll chime in as necessary, but you go ahead and.
Okay, that works. So historically, what happens is traffic complaints came in from everywhere. You name the source. It was by email, by phone, through the council at times, through my officers. They'd walk into the desk. It was.
Scott Simonton.
They would come in
Speed
from
trailer.
everywhere, and we weren't really tracking what the problems were, or if we were repeating the same one. We were good about getting back to them. The problem I saw was that there was really no way to reflect on what's our historical data. Do we have knowledge about what this particular complaint has? Have we looked at it before? Have we studied it before? We weren't doing any of those things. So I actually went around to some of the other cities to see how they were operating, and we kind of developed a simpler version that we thought would work for us. And what that means, that system would be, is on our website, and it's already up and running now. It's just not advertised, but you can go to the website, you can fill out a simple form, and it basically says, where's the problem, what is the problem, what time is the problem, and how can we contact you. If there's an easy fix for it, it doesn't change what we do now, which is we try to have a very quick response within 24 hours. There's already some automation built in. You make the complaint, there's an automation that says, hey, we've received your complaint, we'll be looking into it. Really, the change that we're doing is the actual team or committee or whatever you'd like to call it. And it includes someone from police, someone from engineering, and someone from public works. The thinking behind that is that we're using that multidisciplinary approach. So regardless, so we can look at it from all angles, right? Is this an enforcement issue? Is this an engineering issue? Or is this some signage issue? And with an expert of each category at the table, they should be able to answer those questions fairly quickly and accurately. For now, we would propose that they meet once a month, look at all the complaints that have come in to see if there's additional follow-up required. Like I said, that doesn't prevent us from instantly calling them and talking to them about or sending an officer out. This doesn't prevent any of that, but what it does do is track the knowledge. It's organized, and it's much more of a process, right? Now we can start to collect the data. We can say, hey, the committee can over time start going, hey, we've already seen this one before. We already have the data we can present. Or engineering, maybe there's a problem that needs to be addressed that way. So the other thing is then we right now we only have one speed trailer. It's not very organized right now. It's just kind of on this random floating around the city, and then at times it's requested in certain places. Again, those requests come from all over, and sometimes they conflict. So we'd like this team also to be much more organized about how they manage where that speed trailer is to respond to the requests, and we're looking into also probably purchasing a small additional sign to meet the demand. That one will be smaller, easier to place, and also going to be turned off so it just truly measures, because we all know sometimes when we see those numbers, it causes us to slow down, which messes up the data a little bit. This sign can do the measurements without the actual speed being flashed at you, so we get a much more accurate data about what that looks like or what the problem is or is not.
And then the one thing we wanted to mention to you, because I'm sure you get complaints about the traffic in Wilsonville, that you can just tell the citizen to, go to our website and click on the CRM system, and there's a form you can fill out, it'll go to the right people. So the idea is to try to streamline some of the coming from all over the place complaints and ideas. And
So would this just be like an icon on the city website that you would punch?
I played with it today. There's multiple ways to get to it. If you simply try in the search bar, type in speeding or traffic, it'll be the first thing that comes to you. You can go down into file a complaint or ask the city. There's various ways that'll lead you to that form.
And we probably could get some kind of icon on the police.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yep, that's easy to do.
the thing that strikes me is, how, are we still counting on people's memories? Is there a database that you put together? So such and such an intersection, was there something there last year? Who's going to remember? How will we use that data, or how will we accumulate that data in an efficient way so that we can, not just be trying to remember?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That'd be a terrible system if we just did it off memory, at least speaking for myself. So right now, we don't have a very formalized plan. We have one, we do. There's one central person to all of this information, which is Candy right now. That she's collecting it all and storing it all. How she's going about that, I didn't really want to get in the weeds. I really want to empower this team to operate. Hey, do we need to meet more frequently, less frequently? What's the best way for us to track this type of data? I want to empower them some instead of directing it all to them. So give them a little bit of opportunity to work through some of the issues and then provide guidance when it's necessary.
But the form on the web does include a map, and you're supposed to say, where's the location? So right off the bat, we'll be keeping all of that information. It all stays in our CRM system, so we'll have good things that IS can pull out of the CRM system. So we'll have all the records, and then how we get it all organized, we're still in the, let's see how we're going to do this phase, but we thought it was important to get it kicked off.
So the beautiful thing about data is if there's repeat requests for the same issue, you can look at that and say, well, we've had 15 complaints at this intersection for speeding at this time of day. So deploying your resources from the Rob's standpoint is a lot easier to do because you're probably going to catch, and most times with speeding, it's usually the same person or persons doing the speeding.
And then we've also recently gotten, our summer intern was very helpful, and he helped get all of our traffic speed studies organized into folders, so they'll be easier to access as well. And the idea is to get everything into a spreadsheet now, that it's not just, if you've ever seen a traffic or a speed study report, it's just pages and pages and pages of numbers, but what it's done is it's summarizing the actual data at the PM peak, and so it's much better organized.
Good.
Okay. All right. It sounds interesting. Thank you for the idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
so
look
next
forward
time
to
you
see
get a
how it's
call.
going. Yeah.
The team
Yes.
effort.
Wait,
When you get calls from
Yes.
citizens, direct them to the CRM.
and how is it branded? I think, right, like if people are gonna use it, what is it called exactly? Because CRM, that's a broad
It's traffic
term.
complaint, traffic concern, I think is the
Okay.
exact
Traffic
verb.
concerns team.
Traffic concerns, so
TCT.
TCT is
Yeah.
what we say TCT.
But the branding on the website will say traffic concerns. It leaves the team part off because it's just trying to direct the
Okay,
user
traffic
to the
concerns.
form.
So it'll be like a
TC.
little logo or a little.
Town center.
It's a link you click on. So
It's
like I
just a
said,
link.
yeah, if you go to the search bar, you can type
Okay.
in traffic or speeding, and the first thing it brings back purposely is that link to push on, which opens the form up,
Okay.
and then it's name, email.
But we
phone
can
number.
think about some logo or
Yeah.
something, like a
I think
TC
something
logo
catchy.
that Beth
We
could
could
work with.
Do a
Remember.
cone or something, do
Traffic cone?
We'll put some
Sure.
thought to
Yeah,
that.
I think,
We could do that.
because if you want
Yeah,
people to
orange.
use it, which is gonna
It's gotta be
be
easy.
best for the
We need to
direction of
brand
data.
it and make it
we?
easy.
We'll
for
figure
them.
something out.
Have it on the
Yeah.
main website, have it on the police website, Public Works main page.
And we probably
Car
need
with a
to
rocket engine.
introduce it in the Boones Ferry Messenger also.
Yeah.
Yes, once we figure out, once
Yeah,
Rob figures out what that
absolutely.
branding's gonna look like with his team, we can do that.
And I do know that Bill is working on an article for the BF Boones Ferry Messenger.
And we can
Okay.
do things on social media too, so we get the word out.
So the other thing I would ask is maybe in 6 months, we'd circle
Well,
back and see
let us
how.
know
Yes,
how
that's
it's
a great
going.
idea.
Yeah,
Sure, you
absolutely.
bet.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Contract award on water treatment plant surge tank.
Was that what we talked about earlier?
We
Yeah.
did talk about it a
But that
little
was in
bit.
exec.
I think it's on here just in case you have any questions, right?
Yes.
So I emailed Nancy earlier today saying, what is the surge tank going to do? We haven't had one for the last 18 years. We've been doing without it. Why should we do it now? What's this going to get us?
Okay, so what the surge tank is for is if there's a pressure wave anywhere in the transmission system, it can cause a lot of damage. And they typically occur during sort of extreme events, like, for example, if a isolation valve is closed too quickly, or if we get power loss to the pump station, it really messes up the flow in the pipes. And when you have that kind of a pressure surge, a pressure wave, it can damage your pipes. It can also damage your equipment, which can cause closures of the water treatment plant. It can also cause, if it damages a pipe, it can cause, it can allow infiltration into the pipe system, and that's potential contamination, which requires a public alert. So it's, the reason why we haven't needed it till now, when we first designed the plant, it was recognized that because of the flows in the system, we started out with like 3 to 6 MGD. And because of, once the flows reached a certain extent and got big enough, we'd need the surge tank, and at the time, they were estimating at 12 MGD. So now we're operating at a much higher flow. When we did the, and then we've also added Sherwood. So we've grown, and Sherwood's joined us. So what now we're, when they did the master plan recently, which we adopted last spring, they reanalyzed it, and they determined that at this point in time, it's needed at 15 MGD. Well, we're approaching that. So we really need to get it in place before next summer, because I think we had, what was our highest, are you listening? What was our highest? Oh, I'm sorry, that's not fair. Got a mouthful. Our highest demand was, yeah, 13. So we don't really want to test the limit at all. So that's why and what the surge tank does is it's actually kind of like a little pillow that absorbs back pressure caused by a surge event, and it's right at the plant. So that would answer, I believe, the mayor's questions. And other than that, we're hiring the second lowest bidder, who was responsive to the bid advertisement.
What's this surge tank cost?
This one's about $950,000. And then there's also consulting fees, contract administration fees, but this is just for the construction contract.
Identified in the water master plan.
Right, right.
And so we would expect construction to occur between now and next summer?
Yes. The final completion date is June 30th.
Well,
So we're working really closely with Veolia, because the plant will need to be shut down for certain periods of time when we're actually connecting the piping for the surge tank to the piping in the large pump station. So we've got that, we've worked really hard to make sure we've got that figured out, and have a contingency plans should something go wrong. We're also rebuilding one of the valves outside of the plant as well, one of the meters outside the plant. So that'll be taken care of with this as well.
Well, clearly the public has got a tens of millions of dollars investment in the whole facility, and we don't want to be taking chances with that operation, just from the investment standpoint. Also, we all rely very heavily on the plant being up and operational, consistently, especially when we get to hot weather time. So it would seem that there are good reasons for doing this. It is a big chunk of money. And I'm assuming that staff doesn't feel there's alternatives that do the same job.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This is a single solution.
Yes. Councilor Starr?
Since Sherwood is part of the reason that we're doing this.
They'll be paying a third
okay,
of it.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Right, and they'll be passing a resolution with their council as well.
Okay.
I think next week.
Gotcha.
Okay, anything else?
So, since I'm up here, I'd like to
Yeah.
introduce our new city engineer, Patty Nelson. Come on up, Patty, just real quick. She comes from Bureau of Environmental Services at City of Portland, where has many years of experience, and before that, she was with a consulting firm for several years, and then also she started at ODOT. So she's got a wealth of civil engineering experience, and she's worked with all kinds of staff on very large projects, so we're really excited to have her here. Do you want to add anything?
Nope. I'm just really excited. I've been here 4 weeks. I love the team. I love Wilsonville, and I'm really excited to work with everyone.
That's right, and now you can add working for the best small city in the state to your resume. I mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Thanks, Patty.
Welcome aboard. All right, Regional Park 7 and 8 funding, strategies, conundrums, issues,
all of the above.
whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp.
Conundrums.
City Councilors, Chris Namsu, Planning Director with the city. And I've got a little bit of a tangled web here to try to explain in about 10 minutes and leave a few minutes for questions and answers. I'm here today to speak to you about the funding for Regional Parks 7 and 8 in the Villebois community. Funding for these two major, they're crown jewel parks for the Villebois neighborhood, for the city in its entirety. These are wonderful amenities that will be all along the edge of the Coffee Lake wetlands. There's my image. This is a graphic that's laying on its side. So Beckman Road is up here to the north. Barber Street is down here on the right-hand side of the slide. The park includes Regional Park 7, which is a small passive use park over here on the north side near Villebois Drive. And then the Ice Age Tonkin Trail continues throughout the entirety. There's over a half of a mile of new trail that's planned in this through a variety of habitat types and user experiences, from very active recreation amenities in the form of a half-court basketball or an open play area to more passive use areas, overlooks, environmental areas, and some improvements that we have envisioned for the metro property out in the area. So the funding for these two significant parks in Villebois were codified through a sequence of development agreements that applied specifically to SAP East, and that's Villebois vernacular for Specific Area Plan East. Those agreements were entered into over the period of 2004 to 2013, and they outlined cost commitments to a wide variety of infrastructure projects that serve Villebois, and specifically they include specific reference to Regional Parks 7 and 8. So over the past year, staff and the Polygon design team at Pacific Community Design have been working closely on refining the construction plans for the two parks in preparation for construction of the facilities in the spring of 2019. And so the purpose of today's work session is for me to try to explain those various development agreements, explain what's in the budget, outline some options for the council, and hopefully provide direction on how to bring this all together in a supplemental budget that would happen in January of next year. So the development agreements, they spell out processes for collaboration between the city's urban renewal agency, and the developer design team regarding construction of these two regional parks. Unfortunately, when the recession hit, Matrix filed for bankruptcy, which required restructuring of the original development agreement that was entered into in 2004. The map that I will show next, I actually moved through a couple of blow-ups of those parks. This again is Park 7. This is Park 8 with the open lawn, a half-court basketball, a small area of parking. There'd be a public restroom at this location. There'd be an entry plaza feature. Ice Age Tonkin Trail continues throughout its entirety again. Wide variety of things happening here in the form of nature play, play equipment, different kinds of educational experiences and overlooks, and a dry stream bed. And I'll talk to phase 2 of the park because there is a proposal to split this design into 2 phases. But I had this.
Chris, real quick.
Of course.
Was the park that had the soccer field that you just showed, was that the one that we were getting pushback on?
Yes.
The lighting? Okay.
Lighting, no.
They were concerned about it being too big, a lot of kids coming in.
Last
I thought
summer,
lighting,
yes.
yeah, was part of it.
There was
too.
a number of things, noise,
Yeah.
impacts in the
Active use.
neighborhood,
Yeah.
active
Okay.
use, right.
Okay.
So that is the one that we spent quite a
Okay.
bit of time talking about last summer. So I had this map drawn up so that we could try to understand the geographies in all the various agreements. So at the time that we did development agreement number 1, the original development agreement, Legend Homes was basically, we entered into an agreement with them. They were going to build the entire SAP East. They were going to build 700 plus homes, and they were going to construct all of the parks in this area through that original agreement. And the agreement included a capped credit for parks in the amount of $1,391. Legend ended up only building 190 homes that are highlighted in the red in the southern area. And so if you run 190 times the amount that was capped for the park reimbursement, it comes out to about $264,000. The next development agreement that is of significant importance is development agreement number 4. And that comes along with the blue property in the very north. Polygon Northwest entered into an agreement with the city in 2013. They identified themselves as, and their contractors and designers, as constructors of the park. And the development agreement was structured to contribute all of the SDCs that were generated in that phase of development to those adjacent parks. the entirety of Regional Park 7 and this northern part of Regional Park 8. So in simplistic terms, the fees that were generated here are to be applied to the construction of those immediately adjacent parks. When we entered into the addendum number 5 with Polygon, which was in 2012, that was for this piece of property that's identified in orange. That development agreement paid for Park 6 in its entirety and had a capped amount of $426,986, and it created a supplemental per home surcharge in addition to the park's SDC that was intended to be applied to Regional Park 8, and that generated another just under $100,000. Then we have addendum number 6, which came along in 2013. And addendum 6 to the original development agreement was with Lennar Homes Northwest, and it applies to that southern portion of Regional Park 8. In that agreement, it identifies all of the park's SDCs being allocated to that southern portion of Regional Park 8, as well as creating a supplemental surcharge in addition to the SDC in the amount of $1,155 per dwelling unit, which generated an additional $100,000. So through these various applicable development agreements, being Agreement 1, Addendums 4, 5, and 6, the city has collected just over $2 million for the construction of parks, Regional Parks 7 and 8. And I've included attachment C in your packet for a detailed breakdown of all the phases and the fees that have been collected through the 10 years that we have been collecting fees on this side of the Villebois community. Total park construction numbers were recently received by Polygon's contractors, and those numbers came in high. Even the private sector is experiencing cost increases that the total park package came in at $2.686 million. So immediately upon receiving that news, the city's project team undertook a value engineering exercise to try to control costs and broke the project into 2 phases, with phase 1 construction now coming in at $1.9 million, and phase 2 costs are just over $700,000. So the elements that would be deferred to phase 2 include 1 public restroom in the southern portion of Park 8, 3 gazebos, 1 and 7 and 2 and 8, small seating overlooks along the trail. There are 2 overlooks along the Ice Age Tonkin Trail, a trash enclosure. Some of the landscaping had to be reduced in size or eliminated, and then some of the nature play elements would be deferred as well to a later date. So now I'm going to move to what's in the budget and how staff sees that, and give you some ideas for how we'd like to close the gap on funding for the park. So we have $1.1 million for design and construction of Neighborhood Park 6, as well as Regional Parks 7 and 8. So again, Park 6 is a capped cost of $427, just over $427, and then we have Parks 7 and 8. The $1.1 million is we've got to take the costs out of Park 6 because that was constructed last summer, and we are expecting receipts on Park 6 literally any day now. And if you add in the additional budgeted amount, that leaves about $822,000 in the adopted city's budget today, as we sit here today. So in order to begin to start closing that gap, we had a couple of different ideas. First, there have been some changes by Polish Homes in the Morgan Farm subdivision. We had a very large Beckman Creek Trailhead project, and because that subdivision was cut into 2 phases, we can now budget additional funds next year to construct the second phase of the Beckman Creek Trail project, and we could move $350 over to this project in this year's budgeted amounts. And we could also transfer $150,000 from CIP 9152, which is play structure replacement, to pay for some of the nature play elements that had to be dropped as part of those costs. So that brings us an additional $500,000 into the budget, which gets us to about $1.322 million. So what we would propose to do is bring the additional funds over in a supplemental budget in January, and that would total about $641,000. And if we decided, so that would take us to the amount of the park, right? So that's 1.9. That's the $1.9 million amount.
Phase 1.
1.96, yes, the phase 1 amount. And if the council chose to fund essentially everything that we had collected for Park 7 and 8, that would be about $2.043 million. difference of about $80,000 between those two numbers. So, the 1.9 phase one costs, and then everything that we've collected at 2.043. So at a minimum, what I would like to try to get us to, and what I'm suggesting we do, is fund the park at the $1.962 million amount, that phase one cost estimate that we received. Now, my table C shows that we've collected 2.043. So if we decided to fund these parks with everything that we've received, staff could put back some of those design elements that have been dropped for phase two, like the gazebo or some of those overlooks, and we could work back through a value engineering to add some amenities back into that park.
So the 1.9 is phase one.
Yes.
And so what happens when we get to phase two?
So the last part of my staff report speaks to three options for phase two. We have choices for the future. We can budget additional funds through a supplemental budget if that were the direction that council wanted to provide the staff tonight, and we could do the entire park come spring and build both phases.
Do you know, Chris, what the cost savings would be, mobilization, if you just did everything at once?
I don't have an exact number, but what we do know is that the cost of doing it down the road in the future is likely to cost more. I don't have anything specifically today that would tell me what the mobilization costs are, but I could definitely track that back through PCD and the contractors if that were important. My second idea for trying to get phase two done is to get with Polygon through a future development agreement that they will need for the Claremont subdivision, which is also known as the Chang property. That phase includes Regional Park 6, which is the very last regional park in all of Villebois, and then we will have completed all of the parks in Villebois. Polygon will need a development agreement for Regional Park 6. We could piggyback phase two of Parks 7 and 8 onto that development agreement and have them mobilize for Park 6 and then come down and finish phase two of Parks 7 and 8. And that would be on their timeline. It would be disconnected from the timeline that I've got for this construction, but that would be another choice. I've spoken to them at length about it, and they're comfortable putting that on their contractors and coming back and doing that for the city at that point. The third option is a...
Do you have a question, Councilor?
Yeah. I was just going to ask what the timeline would be for that if on the second option.
So they'll be coming before you to see, they're going to DRB next Monday night. They'll be coming before council in the middle of December for first reading on a zone map amendment. They want to break ground for their subdivision starting in spring, summer. So we could see park development in, late summer, early fall. So they line up okay. We'd probably be able to seamlessly move down there and finish phase two.
So it's not too far down.
No, they're pretty close in time. Yeah, they're both next year actually getting going. And Polygon likes to finish the parks first so that it really markets the homes, which has been a great tool for them. And then that third option that I've outlined in the staff report is to utilize the local share component of a future Metro bond measure. So in the past two bond measures, Metro has created a local share component that allows us as a community and a parks provider to identify park and recreation amenities and to put regional bond share dollars towards those improvements. They're limited in that they need to be natural area experiences, so this park is perfect for local share contributions in the future. And in the last bond, we received over $800,000 from the region to do local projects.
But that'll be 2-3 years out.
Yes.
And it assumes that it'll pass.
Yeah.
And it assumes it'll pass, yeah.
And they're also having a big transportation bond on that
Exactly.
same cycle, so I don't know that I would take anything for granted.
Good points, great points.
So the other issue is, keeping faith with the vision in terms of what people are expecting.
Well, I'd like to remind the council how complex Villebois has been and how many adjustments and renegotiations the city has made in order to keep this whole project moving through a difficult economic downturn, loss of several of our private sector partners, given to the economic situation, having to renegotiate how these things are going to happen. So the city has really done a remarkable job of staying true to the vision, as city manager indicates, and finding ways to strategize, I guess, on how we're going to move forward. And I think that the results in Villebois speak highly to the success of that, but absent the commitment of staff and council to be willing to make adjustments and make changes, Villebois would not be where it is today. And to get toward the completion of this entire system of parks, trailways and whatnot that we had committed to, I think would be a huge feather in our cap. And I think the people of Wilsonville, especially the people of Villebois, will utilize those amenities very, very robustly, and that's part of the whole idea of Villebois, that these will be available to those communities. So how to do it? Again, here we are having to re-strategize, having to try to make modifications and adjustments, but that has been the process we've been through in an ongoing basis. So couple of quick questions, I guess. Your first bullet point, budget additional resources from parks SDCs. I assume there's an opportunity cost to doing that. It's not that there aren't other parks projects to do in the city.
Yes. This is the most difficult part of this, is because we have so many new priorities. You know, I'm focused on fulfilling the obligations that we've made in the past and getting those boxes checked so that we can move to the new plans that Mr. McCarty has put together, and we can begin to fund things like Memorial Park. So I see these as the last of things that are kind of left out there from the tough times and from some of those times that we had to be very creative. And it'll be a great amenity that the community will be proud of when we get to that point. So yeah, it's the balancing with the other projects. I didn't mention, but the resources are available. They can be transferred. There is an unbudgeted amount of funds there that would cover this. And then going forward, all the new priorities come into play.
There's also an opportunity cost for not moving ahead now in terms of additional costs.
Correct. Yeah.
But we just can't quantify that.
Right. We just know it's greater than.
Right.
So I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Stevens.
So if we're using, deferring $150,000 for the playground equipment, that's playground equipment throughout the park system, correct? That we would be replacing.
Correct.
And needed, and I know the previous parks director, I can't remember.
Stan? Yes.
Yeah, he did quite a bit of that.
Yes.
Already, and got ADA compliance on a lot of things too. So I think our playground equipment is in pretty good shape. I haven't been to every park, but certainly Memorial Park, Marasi's in great shape.
Yes.
The other areas, so it'd be easy to, I think that's is going to do what?
I say except for that slide.
Oh, the slide, oh, you don't like the slide there.
And I would say that's not all of that playground replacement money. That's only half of that money. So that still leaves parks with at least 150 to continue for the rest of this fiscal year to do replacement if they need to.
But if you wanted to expedite and get it all done now, then I think there are some opportunity costs that I would want Mike to say, okay,
That
here's
he's
what we
okay
have.
with.
Here's what you would have to kind of forego to get this done now.
So it seemed like the Parks Director speaking to that would be an important part of our decision.
Yeah,
here.
that's why I wanted, because he is sitting in
And
the
he's up
audience, and he's like,
next.
wait a minute. I want to make sure he knows that I see him looking at me.
But the other thing is using the trail for the Beckman Creek Trail at Morgan's Farm.
Yes.
We can take that, and that, so tell me how that impacts that development.
Yeah,
and
what's the
that-
backfill
and
for that?
trail.
Yeah, so we would have to go, we would budget it, we would ask the Budget Committee to provide funding for the second phase of that project. We'd get a new cost estimate from Polish Homes, engineering team for that second phase. They're building 40 of 88 lots, so all they're going to build is that first stretch of trail. What we've left in that account is sufficient to cover that first phase of that trail. So we would just come back to the Budget Committee with new numbers and make another ask next fiscal year for the remainder of that
For the rest
project.
of the trail? Okay, all right, okay, thanks.
And the impact on the SDCs for those homes would not change?
No, but that was not one of the projects that needed to be funded by the supplemental fee. So that was one that was already in the Parks Master Plan,
Okay.
and that was a city project all along.
And it wouldn't change anything with the timing of that project?
No, we're following their lead and their timing on that. So it was an opportunity that we were able to take advantage of.
So tonight, you're looking for what from council specifically?
More or less a nod that we're going to do phase one at a minimum. And if there was a desire to go ahead and fund, again, what we've collected, that would increase that amount a little bit, provide a little buffer there. And we would work back through finance to bring that to you in January as part of our mid-year supplemental budget request. so that we have the money in the account so we can hit the ground in spring, ready to go, and get these contractors building this park.
Could there be another option to explore, just getting it all done?
Fully
now?
funding it would be the third option.
I would think you would want to have that on the table just to at least look at.
Okay.
I think in phase two, one of the things is the bathroom, I think that you mentioned, right? People are always talking about bathrooms in parks and wanting bathrooms in parks, and I get that, and so,
It's an
I would think
important
we would
element.
hear about the need for that.
So the plan has two, just really quickly. There's one that will be built up in this area next to the parking area, kind of the trailhead location. The second one was way down here in the southern part of the park. So the one down here is the one that is envisioned to be deferred.
As the crow flies, how far are they apart?
Well, this is a half a mile from here to
With a
here.
toddler? Can you
Yeah. If you're a
It's been a
toddler.
while since I've had a toddler, so
Toddlers can go to issues.
is it a male toddler or a female toddler?
And
But
there's,
that's a good point, too.
yeah, so the school, I'm not even clear if you could get access to a restroom at the school during off hours or anything like
No,
that.
why
So,
not?
so the next one back up is going to be past the Chang property up at Trocadero Park where the skateboard park is located, which as the crow flies is probably about another half mile.
I think it's a valid point, valid concern.
That's a valid point, yeah. Well, the cost, as the city manager indicates, the cost of delaying are real, and we need to consider that. You know, you have the cost, what does it cost to go ahead? You know, also, what is the cost to delay? And
We can try and
to
drill
get
down on
get our
that.
heads around that a little bit so that we have some basis to.
I think the engineering department can give us, because there's design costs. I mean, if you're designing everything as a package,
Right.
there's some savings there. So we'll try and do the best we can on that one.
Okay.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
So we are a little tight on time. Mr. McCarty, Boones Ferry Park Master Plan, which we've had information on before. Good evening. Mr. Stevenson?
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Chris, we're right on same line with Chris as far as the parks go over there, and we actually brought forward the idea of deferring some of the cost for the replacement program, and I was met with my park supervisor, Todd Blankenship, and yeah, we're right with them, yes. So, but Boones Ferry, Mr. Mayor and Council, I don't know if we have a lot of time. Obviously, we don't, so we're going to run through this really fast. We've been here once before. The Planning Commission did approve or move to adopt it last Wednesday. Unanimous, no question, well, a few questions. No changes or recommended changes. With that, I think we'll jump in here and go and hopefully get done in 10 minutes. And I'm leaving it with Brian. Brian also did the janitorial PowerPoint. He's done this property. He's become a PowerPoint expert, and it's his birthday, so.
Happy birthday, Brian. You spend it
Thanks for that.
with your team.
Now I embarrassed him enough.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be. I mean that. So we're going to scoot through this rather quickly. Obviously, background and context, we all know where Boones Ferry Park is. This addition brings the total acreage to the park to 15 acres. We really did pride ourselves on the amount of public outreach we did. We did 3 public workshops, 211 online survey comments, and really did our best to reach out not only to the neighbors, but the community as a whole to get a feel for what they were looking for. We really wanted to be sure that the elements in the park was what the community was looking for. The green grid on the left, although hard to read, is really sort of a popularity contest of what amenities folks were looking for, with river access and protection of natural areas scoring high, other things like basketball, fishing, picnic areas also scoring high. And we feel really positive that the amenities that folks asked for, we were able to get into the plan. We took a look at 3 different conceptual plans, all with varying pieces. One looking at how many different ways can we get active elements into that park. Basically, every inch of that park had something going on. And other elements or other park concepts had a lot less. That was refined down to one plan. That plan was further refined, and that got us to where we are today. So I'd just like to make the majority of the time we spend to focus on what this plan has in it. The main feature that we have here is going to be a dock. And that dock is going to be designed for non-motorized watercraft. Up the hill that you see here is going to be rental opportunities. So we envision the opportunity for canoe and kayak rentals for folks to utilize that may not have their own. The plan also includes 3 river overlooks. Let's do it this way. One being here, a second here, and a third here. And these are positioned up on the bank just to give folks a more passive way to interact with the river, looking out from the bank above. As I mentioned, preserving natural area was very important to those folks that attended the open houses and gave their feedback online as well. So currently there's a large grove of trees right here, and this area up here is all wooded, and we do intend to preserve those areas as much as possible, with this area having nothing more than a trail system passing through it. Some new elements that were added to this park: dog park on this side, and then a bike skills course that will cut through this area as well. Another component of this park, obviously the Toffman House is located in it, so the plan does call to update the Toffman House. It adds an outdoor event plaza that can be utilized for weddings or other events that might take place there. Playground area down here in this green area is actually the relocated basketball court. Another great piece of this park is connections to existing and planned trails. We've got the Memorial Trail coming this way. We've got connection to the Ice Age Tonkin Trail north of here, the 5th Street, and then with the French Prairie Bridge coming in here, potential for future regional trail connections. The park also has some other support elements, parking, restrooms, and some picnic shelters. Obviously a lot going on. So this plan was phased into 5 different areas. Phase 1 really being what the public had asked for the most, and that's that interaction with the river. So you can see that the various phases and their costs. The thing to keep in mind with this master plan is this is sort of a blueprint, if you will. It's not the final design document. We do have a lot of studies still to do, but you're looking probably at an $8 to $13 million range for this park, depending on what some of those studies say. Next steps, as I mentioned, we do still have some studies to do, a more technical survey from a land survey perspective, and then some geotechnical and hydrology studies to be sure that the trails that we are proposing on the hillside, as well as where the dock is going to be placed, are all feasible. And I'm just going to jump back to this to point out 3 elements from the last time that were different. So the last time we were here, this parking lot and this parking lot were more along the street, and since then, those have been pushed back to sit off the roadway. The other element, there was a second dock here, and that's been removed, as well as some ADA accessibility that came down the hill. Reason being, in talks with the State Marine Board, there's some question whether the type of dock or that second dock was going to be feasible. And then when we had some folks out on site looking at the feasibility of an ADA trail coming down the hill, it just wasn't going to happen. So that's been replaced with the soft surface seasonal trail that will come across the edge of the river, connect up to this trail. As far as ADA accessibility goes, that will be achieved in this area. The exact layout is not shown on this plan, but we do feel comfortable that in that area we can achieve accessibility from an ADA perspective. And at this point, we'll open it up to questions.
Council. Councilor Starr.
So help me understand more specifically why the second dock. I mean, if we're going to have people launching kayaks and other things, that could get a little bit busy for people that aren't doing some of that. So it would be nice to have a second dock. The Marine Board doesn't want it for what reason?
It was twofold. One, the design of the dock and the distance from the bank was one issue. I know there were some issues with some fish and the water temperatures there as well. and I'm not sure if there's anything further.
No, and it was also getting access. We had geologists out, we had hydrologists out, and they basically said getting there from that location up on the bluff there was 99% impossible.
So there's not like a second alternative to put another dock somewhere else?
Not on this piece of property that we were able to. Obviously, the biggest challenge on this property is the topography. I mean, I'll assume everyone here has been out to the site, that you've got a very large steep drop that comes from the park itself down to the river. So figuring out the best way to get down there was a challenge in and of itself. And we just felt that soft surface trail was the best option to still give folks the interaction with the river, but to get ADA accessibility down that side or even from the existing dock you see on the map was just going to be too challenging.
We were even very concerned about the other one until we heard from the quote-unquote experts that we would be able to make that ADA accessible, but they assured us that was very doable, but the other one, not
Do
so
they both
much.
have to be ADA accessible if you had a second dock, or do you only need to have one?
No, I believe they both have to be ADA accessible.
I think anything new.
The Duckworth property toward the east there that we bought for this park has lower bank, does it not? It's closer to the river bank level, and there seems like there's a bit of a cove almost there. Did they look at putting a second dock there?
We did look at this side. I wouldn't say specifically from a dock perspective, but it is very steep from this line down. The area that's actually from the former Sternwheeler landing site is generally here, and there's a little bit of a trail already built in there, and that's the most gradual way down. But I threw around creative ideas such as an elevator to get down there, but it is very steep, almost straight down from the Duckworth property to the river.
I thought it was flatter.
Well,
Councilor Lehan.
yes, as several of us might recall, we lost a significant chunk of bank to the 96 flood. That, probably that part where it goes in a little bit there used to be out. I mean, we lost our fence and everything went down with that several yards of bank, which is that. So having geotech is going to be important for all of that. And likewise for, makes you worry a little bit about a trail that is so close to that sheer bank, or making any trail cuts into that bank that might destabilize it at all. Because chances are we'll lose more of it again. That's just the nature of rivers. But so where the current dock is, that's Boone's Ferry, right? That's the Boone's Ferry ramp going down there. So that will be paved to the dock.
Correct.
I presume. And reasonably not too steep of a slope. And that dock, we do have support from the Marine Board or the Army Corps, because remember when the city, well, before my time, but when the city wanted a boat ramp there, the Corps turned us down on it because of the currents in the river there.
And
It was a riverbank, whatever issue, the way the eddies were, that they wouldn't allow it.
And that may still come into play. So at this point, I would not say we have
This is a floating
support.
dock and not a boat ramp. Maybe it's not an issue, but it was an issue 40, 50 years ago.
And I can tell you, we did meet with someone who specialized in dock building on the site, and they felt comfortable in being able to build a dock that we have spec'd out in that area. As far as support from the State Marine Board, time will tell on that.
Yeah, I don't know if they're the ones who okay it before. It seemed to me it was the Corps
I think it's Corps and DSL.
that said no.
If you're in the water.
Okay, well, this is pretty exciting stuff. All these years that area has been kind of underutilized. This is a significant change in terms of accessibility and provisions for people to have a variety of different activities there. And, you know, yes, as far back as I've been here, 30 years, people have been saying that, you know, we really need to do better with the river because it goes through town and you don't even see it. And we can't see it or use it or participate in it. And so.
And we heard that over and over and over.
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
We'll see how enthusiastic, because the only way to fund this is through a GO bond. So for the new council, when you're seated, we have about, what, $60 million of parks improvements that we can put out there on a bond measure?
Wow.
Athletic fields, Memorial Park, and now this one.
Yeah.
So the question will be, is the city really committed to doing the parks?
Or maybe you prioritize projects and spread them out over the city like Metro does with their bond measures to make sure there's something in it for everyone.
And that's probably the next step, as the city manager says, is prioritize between Memorial, the overall master plan, this one. Where does everything sit?
And I would run that through your Parks and Rec board, see what their views are, and make some recommendations to council.
Yeah.
We also appreciate your patience. I know this has taken a while, but I can tell you the plan we had 4 months ago is this is just way better, and it's a document I think the city can be proud of for 15 years, and I think we got to where we needed to get, and we still need to come forward to everybody in December one more time, and hopefully we'll go from there.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have a brief word from smart folks on our purchase of battery buses, which apparently is upon us sooner than we had anticipated.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Dwight Brashear, the proud director of SMART, which includes the fleet department. And with me this evening is our resident fleet expert, Scott Simonton. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Yeah. He wanted me to say that. So we just want a real brief, we're going to address this on new business this evening, but just in case you had any questions about the purchase of, I mean, it's not parks. We're not glamorous. Buses aren't as glamorous as parks, but you do need them to get to parks. So we're excited about bringing the first 2 of 3 electric buses that we plan to purchase. These buses will operate right here in Wilsonville, taking the kids to and from school. The earlier discussion I thought was interesting because we do carry quite a few high school students and middle school students. I think some of our buses are at capacity. And it would be nice if more would ride, we could add more service. So my commitment, if we can get parents to trust us with their children, we'll get them there and back home safely. So anyway, if there are any questions, Scott, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I don't think anything outside of it's on the agenda.
Right. Yeah.
Any questions?
So the vehicles are 85% paid by federal grant.
Yes.
Our chip in is 15%.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And then the charging or the other equipment that goes with them is slightly different. That's 90% federally paid and 10% match from our side. So the net match coming from the city is?
$226,000.
Okay. And that money is coming through newly collected funds through the House Bill 2017 monies?
That's correct. It's part of our plan, and the plan is on its way to the OTC, should be approved in December.
Okay. And they're actually going to have these done in the spring then?
Yeah, Scott worked really hard. He's made a trip down there, worked with them. They haggled on the price a bit, and I think he got us some savings where he could, along with the consultants.
Yeah.
Consultants. So I think this is a really good deal for Wilson.
So the reason they're not in the budget, though, is this was not anticipated to occur before July 1, right?
Right.
And so now we're having to circle back and sort of rush it forward so that we're ready. Do I understand?
Yes, I think there's
seizing an opportunity.
Yeah, there's a good opportunity for us to get these buses in and get them in service, where they can immediately start cleaning the air and doing what they do. So it's exciting for us to be in this position.
That's right. Right. Council, anything? Questions?
Do the buses come with a wrap that has anything on it, or?
That's a separate project, yes, we will be, can we talk about that yet?
It's top secret.
Yeah.
Is it going to be your picture on the bus?
No, of course, no. Believe it or not, I worked in a city where that happened, so I don't know.
Your picture or somebody else's?
It was mine.
Oh, okay, wow, okay.
Yeah. If you ever come to my office, I have a small mock-up of it.
Okay,
They
nice.
gave me a copy of it, but, yeah.
Well, I would only remind you that if we do not tell our own good stories, other people tend to overlook us, so we have got to be able to tell our own good stories.
We've been pushing that out quite a bit.
Right. And we are, to answer your question, we have a special project where we have some students, local students involved in helping to design that wrap.
Nice.
And we're going to present it to the council at some point when it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah. But we're having to move that up.
Right.
Because of the delivery schedule. So, yeah, we're working with some tight timelines, but, yeah.
Okay. I'm not hearing any questions. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
See you in a bit.
We will call us adjourned at 7 o'clock, and that means we need to reconvene downstairs.